Welcome back to another episode of Know Your Legacy. I'm your host, V, and today's guest is Hal Elrod. Hal is the best-selling author of multiple books and a keynote speaker. His most famous book, The Miracle Morning, has spread like wildfire across the globe and is backed by legends like Robert Kiyosaki and MJ DeMarco. His most recent book, The Miracle Equation, it talks about two principles, unwavering faith and relentless effort. And he's also the host of a podcast called Achieve Your Goals. He's on a mission. This man is on a mission to elevate consciousness one morning at a time. Hal, thank you so much for being here.
Vipul, it is an honor, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Most definitely. I'm excited to get into all the topics that you know I've thought about asking you, and some of the stuff we're talking about off air as well. But the first thing, because I've heard you say CEOs usually call you in to talk about the accident story, talk about the miracle morning, and you've done that probably millions of times by now. But what's the one area or topic that you wish you had a chance to speak about more?
Honestly, it's books. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about because the Miracle Morning, that was a book that I wrote because I felt a sense of responsibility to help people with something that helped me, but I never had a vision for it being a worldwide phenomenon or this huge success. We've sold 1.7 million copies of that book now, and I've reversed engineered it and analyzed it and kind of broke it apart to really understand what has made that book such a word of mouth phenomenon. And because the 1.7 million copies that we've sold, that's not because I'm a genius marketer. It's literally word of mouth. In fact, 2 years ago, I was in the hospital fighting for my life. I had a really aggressive cancer that I almost died from, and I spent almost an entire year in the hospital. I didn't do a single podcast interview, anything, and we sold 130,000 books that year. And it's all because of how the book was written. Now, the marketing, there's a little bit to that, but it's mostly how it's written. So I'm really passionate about talking about helping people to structure their books in a way that will lead to way more success and impact from that book than if they didn't implement the strategies that I kind of stumbled upon, if you will.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you touched on that because I remember you saying that I guess your goal when you set out to putting the book out there into the world was 1 million copies in the first year, and you hit 10,000. And of course that goes into one of the principles of which we'll get into is of relentless effort. But what was it, if you were to break it down, I guess, in a few steps that really led to the success of the book? Because it started off with 10,000, and as you said, you ended up in a hospital bed, but it was still selling copies without you having to push heavy amounts of marketing.
Yep. So here's the one thing, right? If I broke it down to the single most determining factor in the Miracle Morning success, and if you are writing a book, and here's the deal, forget writing a book. Like all a book is it's a way to deliver a message, right? So if you're running a live event with hundreds of people, that's just a book in event form, right? If you're giving a speech, that's a message. It's just different vehicles to deliver content, right? So really what I'm about to share, you can use this for any content that you are delivering. And this is it. The number one factor in the success of the Miracle Morning, and I think that if you're writing a book, what you want to incorporate, or if you're doing any way you're delivering a message, it's changing someone's behavior in a consistent and meaningful way. So if you think about it, most books don't do that. Most books don't change our behavior. Most books, they shift our thinking, and it's a very short-lived shift because, you read one book, right? And as soon as you're done, as you're reading it, you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Oh, wow, that's a great idea. And maybe you're talking to your friends about it only while you're reading the book. And then as soon as you finish reading it, you're like, God, that was amazing. Most people, all they do in terms of changing behavior is set the book down and pick up the next book on their shelf and read that and go, whoa, this is amazing. This is a great book, right? But nothing actually changes. And the Miracle Morning, so I always say that we don't need more information necessarily, right? We need methods for implementation. And the paradox or the irony is that you deliver methods of implementation through information, right? Like, meaning, you actually have to get the information on how to implement what you're learning. But the point is, most books almost try to impress the reader, I think, right? Like, wow, look at how brilliant this concept is. You never heard this before. It's going to blow your mind. You're going to think I'm amazing, right? It's like ego. And the miracle equation, or the miracle morning and the miracle equation, but the miracle morning, it was, you could literally, I wasn't trying to impress it, and I literally made a conscious decision up front. So I was thinking about hiring a ghostwriter. Some people said, I got to hire a ghostwriter. I went, I don't want to impress people with how good the writing is. I want to get them to do it. And so I actually want the writing to be so simple that they could hand the book to their third grade, daughter or son, and be like, hey, if you read this and do it for a month, I'll give you $100. And there'd be like a 90% success rate of a third grader being able to completely understand. So the point is, in the book, the entire thing is leading to behavior change, right? And it holds their hand in a step by step by step, like, so simple a third grader could do this. But if you follow the steps, you almost can't fail. Like, it's easy. So that's it. Is if you are creating content for people, change their behavior. And I'll give you, Vipul, I'll give you an exact tip as a podcaster. And I actually don't do this as well as I should on my own podcast. As I'm saying this, I'm probably going to make a major shift because I'm saying this going, why don't I do this consistently? And that is that at the end of the podcast, right? And any guest, it should almost be where they're set up for this, where it's like, hey, when your guest gets the info, it should be, hey, my number one objective is that my listeners have something they can do that's simple, actionable, and will literally create results for them immediately or very quickly, right? So let's end the show with you giving them something that will change their behavior in a meaningful way that will add value to their life. And so the last thing I'll say on that is, ideally you want it to be ritualized, something they do consistently, because here's the deal. Miracle Morning, somebody reads it and then they actually start doing it. And 3 years later, when they leave a dinner party at 8 p.m. and the people are like, dude, why are you leaving it? It's only 8 p.m. And they go, I have to go home. I have to wake up early for my Miracle Morning tomorrow. They go, you're what? And they go, oh, it's this book I read 3 years ago that I still talk about every time I leave a dinner party early, every time I go to bed early, every time I text somebody at 5 in the morning and they go, why are you up so early? I'm doing the Miracle Morning, right? So if you're writing a dating book, right, create a ritual that a couple does that adds value to their relationship every single day. They could journal together. They could share one thing they're great, something simple, right? But now they're telling their friends about this ritual that's adding value and saving their marriage, right? Because you wrote it into a book or you put it in a podcast or whatever. So that's the key.
I love that. Yeah. So it's basically about being super practical and breaking it down. So you're taking away the burden of thinking from their part, like really for them to, read between the lines, basically. You're not allowing them to do that. They don't have to do that.
No. And that's one thing you have to do is one of the most important questions for behavior, to change someone's behavior, is to ask, what could prevent them from making this change? And then you've got to address all of those things in your book, in your content, etc., right? And give them the solutions to all of the obstacles that would be common to prevent them from, like for me, people having the belief that says, I'm not a morning person. I don't know how to beat the snooze button. I've tried. I just can't do it. That was the number one obstacle for people doing the Miracle Morning. So I have an entire chapter dedicated to how to beat the snooze button in 5 minutes and become a morning person in 5 minutes, even if you've never been one your entire life. And that chapter is probably the single most important chapter in the book, because otherwise people would be like all excited to do it, but they would get stuck and they wouldn't be able to stick with it because they couldn't beat that snooze button.
Were you always a writer?
No. I had never had a dream of being a writer. I had a car accident when I was 20 years old. I was hit head on by a drunk driver. I died for 6 minutes. I was in a coma for 6 days. I broke 11 bones. And when I came out of the coma, doctor said I would never walk again. And in the hospital, I had an amazing recovery, just defied the odds, took my first step in 3 weeks after I was found dead, after my leg broke in half, my pelvis broke in 3 places. And there's that adage, everything happens for a reason. And that crossed my mind in the hospital. And I was thinking, everything happens for a reason, but it's my responsibility to decide on the reason. Like, it's not predetermined. It's not like I don't need to look up to the heavens and ask for the reason. I need to decide what is the reason that is meaningful that I'm going to choose. And I thought, maybe I should write a book about this, and how I'm overcoming this in my mindset. The doctors didn't understand how I could be so positive when they were telling me, no, you're probably never going to walk. And I'm like, okay, if I'm in a wheelchair the rest of my life, I've already decided I'm going to be the happiest and the most grateful person you've ever seen in a wheelchair. They're like, what's wrong with you? Like, this isn't normal, you know? And I go, if I'm in a wheelchair the rest of my life anyway, why would I let that determine my emotional well-being and my quality of life? And, you know, and so the doctors actually planted the seed. They go, you should write a book or something because this isn't normal. And because you thought so positively, I think that aided in your recovery and why you were able to walk again so quickly. And that's where the seed was planted. And it took me 6 years because I'm not a writer and it was really hard and I write really slow. But my first book published, you know, 6 years later, and then took another 6 years to write The Miracle Morning, which was my second book.
Wow. So there's a load of books, if I understand correctly, before The Miracle Morning that people, you know, don't really.
Just one. So
Okay.
Taking Life Head On was my first book because I was hit head on by a drunk driver. I took life head on, so to speak, right? Because again, writing was hard for me. I only did it because I felt a sense of responsibility to share what I had learned with other people. I never planned on writing another book. And then in 2008, when the U.S. economy crashed, I kind of crashed with it. And keeping a long story very short, I had to figure out what do the world's most successful people do every day that I'm not doing, and I need to do what they do and I'll get the results that they get, right? That like seems like the common sense kind of formula. And I kept coming across articles on morning routines and morning rituals, but I'm not a morning person, or I wasn't a morning person. So I literally, Vipul, I would be like, you know, next article, like I wouldn't even read the articles on morning rituals because I'm like, I'm not a morning person. I'm like, no. Where's the articles on people that sleep till like 8 or 9 a.m. and still crush it, right? Like that's my strategy. And I don't remember the headline, but one of the articles it just caught my attention. And it basically, I read the article and it opened my eyes to what I now share with people, which is that how you start your day isn't just something that you could have improve, might consider. It's arguably the single most important upgrade you can make in your life to upgrade your life, right? Because how you start your day sets the context, the tone, the direction for how you live your day. In other words, you know, think about this. If you put yourself in a peak physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual state first thing in the morning, then you literally attack your day. You take your day on at your best. Like you're a better version of yourself than when you went to bed the night before. And if you do that every single day, then every day you show up to your work, to your family, to what your purpose, your mission, whatever it is, at your best, right? At level 10. And then you can create level 10 results because you're at level 10. And so I decided, all right, I'll do it. I'll give it a 30-day chance. I'll give 30 days. I'll wake up an hour earlier. I'll do a morning routine. I'll give it a try. But I decided, I thought, I want to create like the ultimate morning ritual, right? Like if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go all in. And so I Googled, you know, like best morning rituals and best personal development practices. I was trying to find the one. I go, should I meditate in the morning? Should I just read? Should I just exercise? And I had a list of 6 practices. And I asked myself, which of these is the best one? Like, which of these is going to give me the most mileage and change my life the fastest? Because at that time, the economy crashed, 2008. I had lost over half of my clients, which means half my income. Therefore, I couldn't pay the mortgage. I was losing my house, and I lost the house, but I was in the middle of losing the house when I came with the Miracle Morning. I was in the worst shape of my life. My body fat percentage had tripled in 6 months. And I was on like a real downward spiral, and mentally and emotionally, I was kind of a mess because I didn't know how to fix things. And then I decide, all right, I'm going to do the ultimate morning ritual. And I have these 6 practices, and I go, which one's the best? And the epiphany was when I went, wait a minute. What if I did all of these? Like, what if I woke up tomorrow and I meditated for 10 minutes, then I did affirmations for 10 minutes, then I did visualization for 10, exercise for 10, reading for 10, and journaling for 10. The 6 most timeless, proven personal development practices in the history of humanity. I thought that would be the ultimate morning ritual. I woke up the next morning, and Vipul, I sucked at all of them. Like, I didn't know how to meditate. Back the night before, I literally Googled how to meditate, new window. How to do affirmations, new window. How to do visualization, new window. Exercise, I knew how to do. Reading, I knew how to do. The journaling, I didn't really know how to do it right. How to journal, you know. And I woke up the next morning, and the first like 10 minutes was I just read an article on each of these. So I meditated. I was like, I don't know how to do this. I'm terrible at it. And even sucking at all of those 6 practices, 1 hour later, I felt incredible. And I had been depressed for like 6 months. I felt incredible. And I went, if I start every day like this, feeling like this, it's only a matter of time before my outer world reflects the inner world, before I become the person that has the knowledge and the skills and the mindset and the confidence and the beliefs and the right to turn my life around. And I was thinking it would be like 6 months to a year, and it was 2 months, just under 2 months. It was like 7 weeks. I doubled my income more than doubled, from $5,000 a month to $12,000 a month. And I didn't get a new job. All I did was, through the knowledge and the clarity and everything I was gaining through that morning practice, I just doubled my client load again. I went from being in the worst shape of my life physically to committing to run a 52-mile ultra marathon I had never run before in my life, except for high school PE class for like a mile every few months. And I decided to run 52 miles in a day, which is 112 kilometers in a day. And I did that. I completed it, and my depression went away. And so the Miracle Morning wasn't a book idea. It was, I went to my wife after these 2 months and I go, sweetheart, we are in 2 months. Let me tell you what's that. We doubled our income. I'm training for this ultra marathon. It feels like a freaking miracle. This morning routine has changed my life so much. She goes, it's like your Miracle Morning. And I go, yes. I'm like, that's it. It's the Miracle Morning. And then like I started thinking about a book idea, and and the rest is kind of history. And then and to your point, my goal was to change 1 million lives one morning at a time, and it was 1 year to do the goal. That was my timeline. I sold either just under or just over 10,000 copies. That means I fell short of my goal by 990,000 copies, right? And I applied the miracle equation, which, that's what we're going to talk about today. And it took me 6 years. So my goal was, okay, year 2, nope. Year 3, nope. Year 4, nope. It took me 6 years to reach the million copy mark, and I'm almost at another million copies just a couple of years later. So it's like I'll reach the second million in half the time, right? And it's a testament to what we're gonna go in depth on today, and yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. And I wanted to ask you about the what you thought led to actually getting to the million mark, because most people will be disheartened after 10,000. So what was it
Sure.
that you did differently? Because I'm sure at the end of the year, there was a point where you were reflecting and thinking, hang on, I haven't met the number that I hoped for. Now what? What happens from that point?
So I'll give a quick preview of the miracle equation, okay? Because that's the answer. It's made up of 2 very simple decisions. In fact, I always kind of joke, but I'm serious, that the decisions are deceptively simple in their explanation, but they're extraordinarily rare in their execution. It kind of like if you want to lose weight, if you're overweight or you're out of shape, well, if I were to tell you how to do it, I'd say exercise and lower your calories. You're like, oh, I already know that doesn't help me. I'm like, well, great. So what we need, and I think I might have said this earlier, we don't need more information. We need methods for implementation, right? And that's what this book is all about, is not that you need these 2 complicated decisions. No, they're simple. Implementing them is not simple, right? Or it's simple, but it's not easy, right? So here are the 2 decisions. The first decision is unwavering faith, or specifically that you must develop unwavering faith. And I don't mean faith in anything outside of yourself. I'm not talking about faith in a higher power. Not that there's anything wrong with that, or not taking anything away with that. I have faith in a higher power. But I'm talking about faith in yourself. Faith in your limitless potential and your ability to literally do anything that you commit to doing over an extended period of time. Usually doesn't happen quickly. And that's the biggest problem, is it's not that we fail, it's that we set an unrealistic time frame and then we fail to meet it, but we shouldn't have set it the right way, So for me, I've lived by the irony, or what's interesting is the Miracle Equation is my new book. Miracle Morning came first, but in my life, Miracle Equation came 6 years before the Miracle Morning. So I made up the miracle equation when I was 20 years old. I was trying to break a sales record, and I've lived by it ever since. So the miracle morning became the miracle. I mean, it reached millions of people because I applied the miracle equation to it. It's just that I didn't write, the books came out of order, if that makes sense, right? But so here's the point. The first decision in the miracle morning is that you have to establish unwavering faith that you can do something you've never done before. By default, every human being is born as a baby. They've never walked, let alone made money or written books or started businesses or gone to college, right? By definition, we have to establish faith that we can do something we've never done before, because we've never done anything that we have, until we do it, right? We all start at zero, at nada. So you have to establish the faith that you can do something you've never done before. And here's the hard part, though. That's the easy part. If you're an optimist, you've already heard that you can do anything, right? Anything is possible. But possible is not enough to get us out of bed in the morning to, with the energy. Like we don't pursue that which is possible. We pursue that which is probable. In fact, if you look, the subtitle of the book says it really well. It's the 2 decisions that move your biggest goals from possible to probable to inevitable. And so we pursue that which is probable. Like we, human beings, human nature, we crave certainty. We pursue certainty. And that's one of the reasons most of us don't ever go after our biggest goals and dreams, because there's no certainty. We just play small. We go, I know that if I show up to work, just keep showing up, even though I don't really like my job, it's not really fulfilling. It's not really making me that much money where I can actually live this great life that I want. But at least I know that if I show up, I get a paycheck, and that gives me certainty that I can have food and shelter, right? And that's about it, right? So, but that's not how you create an extraordinary life. That's not how you create a life of freedom and options, and right? That's done by stepping out on the faith that you can do things that there is no certainty. You never know for sure. But let me say that the certainty comes in the inevitability of when you maintain unwavering faith over an extended period of time, and then you support it with the second decision, which is putting forth. Now, you called it relentless effort, which I like that. In the book, I call it extraordinary effort, right? And extraordinary effort is not what it sounds like, in that it sounds like, yeah, so Hal, we have to maintain faith, so believe we can do it and work hard. Great. I already knew that, right? Extraordinary effort is not about working hard. Now, that can be part of it, and I definitely go through seasons in my life where, like the book launch, I just finished this book launch. I worked my butt. I worked hard, right? Like I worked hard. But extraordinary effort is not about working hard. It's not about working 80 hours a week. If I were to sum it up in one word, that word is consistency. If you and so let me say, this is how you move your biggest goals from possible, which is worthless, to probable, which is now we're getting somewhere, to inevitable, which is that's what we need to be at. The way that you move goals from possible to probable to inevitable is consistency over an extended period of time. So it's establishing the faith you can do something you've never done before. It's writing out a statement that affirms and solidifies what that faith means to you. And I'll let you know what's in the book, right? It's in simple form. The statement is something along the lines of, I am committed to give it everything I have to achieve my mission. And we can talk, if we have time, we'll talk more about mission versus goals. It's a big difference. But I'm committed to giving everything I have to achieve my mission, regardless of my results along the way. No matter what, there's no other option. I'll say it one more time. I am committed to giving it whatever it takes to achieve my mission, regardless of my results along the way. No matter what, there's no other option. That is my miracle mantra. That is what I repeat hundreds and thousands of times along the journey to reach a mission. So with the Miracle Morning, I was committed to maintain unwavering faith that I could reach 1 million people and put forth extraordinary effort until, and that word until is so undervalued. You need to circle that word. You need to underline it 3 times, because the only reason people fail, 2 reasons. Number one, they never get started because they just keep with their certainty. Well, I'll just keep showing up to work and getting a paycheck. So they never get started because of fear of failure or lack of, clarity on what they should do to get there. So whatever the reason, they don't get started, or they give up before they get there. And that's why establishing faith is easier than maintaining it, because establishing it is, I can do it. They call that uninformed optimism, right? I can do it. I can do anything. And then you go for it. But as soon as your expectations are deterred, you go, oh, whoa. I didn't know that was going to happen. Oh, my first attempt didn't go the way I thought. I failed. I hit a roadblock. I whatever it is, right? The faith wavers. You go, oh, self-doubt creeps in. You go, maybe I was kidding myself. Maybe not. So for me, self-doubt crept in many times, every day, every week. I was doing, my extraordinary effort was, I did on average a dozen podcast interviews like this every single week, as many as over 20 in a week, right? Plus I was still working a job. I was still coaching people and speaking, working 2 jobs. I personally launched my own podcast to start connecting with my readers. So I did 52 of my own episodes that year. I did over a dozen television interviews, local and national. I did shows like Good Day Houston, Good Morning Sacramento, Good Albuquerque, all across the country. I did national shows like NBC's Daytime, national. All right, I did over 36 speeches that year. I put in so much effort, and I didn't get the results. But I knew, because I had practiced the miracle equation for 6 years at that point, that miracles take a long time. They almost never happen as fast as you want them to, but when they finally do happen, you almost never wish they would have happened any sooner. In fact, if you're watching or listening to this right now, this may be one of the most important pieces of wisdom that I share with you. And that is that when you've been working so hard for so long for something, and if you're right now in your life and you're going, man, Hal, that's me. I've been working hard and it's not happening. The business is not growing as fast as I want. The weight's not coming off as fast as I want. My books, I thought it would be done by, it's not, whatever it is for you, whatever it is, right? Your marriage, whatever it is, if it's not where you want it to be, realize that when you finally get to the point you've been working for so hard for so long, you almost never wish it would have happened any sooner. Instead, you look back over your journey and you go, oh, the journey was necessary. I had to go through all of that to become the person that I am today, that had the capability of achieving what it is that I've now achieved. I see now the perfection in my journey. So if you're on that path right now and you're in the hard part, and I've been there. I've been there when I was in the hospital, not knowing if I'd ever walk again. I've been there when I was trying to sell 1 million books and I didn't even sell, sort of fraction of that. Be at peace with where you are, while you maintain a healthy sense of urgency to get where you want to go. And let me just, in short, the second decision in extraordinary effort, I mentioned it's consistency. If you do one thing every day that moves you in the direction of your biggest goal or your biggest dream, your success is inevitable. It's only a matter of time. For me, I thought I could do it in a year. I thought I could do it in 2. Then I thought I could do it in 3, then 4, then 5. It took me 6. It might take you 6. It might take you 10. I love the saying, it takes 10 years to be an overnight success. When you see someone that you've never, an actor, like Rami Malek, right? Rami Malek, who was just in Bohemian Rhapsody, one of my favorite movies of all time, played Freddie Mercury, right? Won the Oscar, won the Emmy. I had never heard of the guy, right? And he was, I saw him on a talk show, right? You're an overnight success. He goes, dude, you haven't seen the 10 years of hustling, grinding, sleeping in my car, working at restaurants, getting kicked out of auditions, right? Not getting parts. And then finally, his miracle happened in one role, one movie, right? So anyway, for the Miracle Morning, I mean, that's the answer is I maintained unwavering faith until I didn't care. And I remember, I literally, after that first year when I was evaluating my goals for the next year, I don't remember why this number popped in my head, but I go, you know what? Maybe it's going to take me 30 years to get there. And I'm okay with that. I'm committed, because in 30 years, if I've changed 1 million lives, I'm not going to regret that it took me 30 years. I'm going to be like, I'm glad I kept at it and I stayed committed to maintaining unwavering faith. And I put forth extraordinary effort for 30 years, because I finally got there. And you know, right? And so, yeah, so that's how I did it. And that's how, I mean, if you study the world's most successful people, the most prolific achievers, you know, in any walk of life, that they all made these two decisions over and over. I don't care if they're an Olympian or a world champion or a millionaire or a billionaire. They had to establish the faith they could do something they had never done. They had to maintain that faith in themselves over and over and over an extended period of time for years or maybe decades. And they had to put forth and maintain extraordinary effort for the duration of that time until they got to where they wanted to be.
So people that are listening to this right now, they're probably thinking, Hal's very well polished. You know, he's mastered these two things, and that's why you can talk about it so confidently with some of the examples you've given. But I guess for people who are listening, including myself, what was it like before all of this? Meaning, 20 is when, you know, it seems like your life kind of took a different direction, and then you had to start thinking about things again. But from, you know, when you were in the hospital bed, the first thought wasn't, oh, my life is over. It was, okay, I'm okay with this. Now what? You know, where do I go from here? What was it like growing up for you? Because did your childhood or anything preceding that event lead to that particular type of mindset? Because that's not, you know, regular.
Normal, sure. Yeah, that's what the doctor said. That's not normal. They didn't believe me. They thought I was in. The doctors told my parents that I was either in denial or that I was delusional from my brain damage. They said it was one of those two, and maybe they're right. I don't know. But so there are two events in my life that really lead to the mindset that I have, and I write about it in the book now. By the way, I wrote an entire chapter called "Becoming Emotionally Invincible: How to Release Every Negative Emotion That's Ever Held You Back in 5 minutes." And this is not an exaggeration. So, two events. Number one, my sister died when I was 8 years old, and when I was 8, my baby sister, her name is Amory, and she was a year and a half. 18 months old. And it was me, my mom, and her that were home that day. It was a weekend. It was Saturday morning. My dad was at work, and my sister was away at my grandma's house. And I woke up to my mom screaming. And I ran across the hall, and she was holding my 18-month-old sister dead in her arms, giving her mouth to mouth. And so I didn't know she was dead at that point. She officially was pronounced dead a few hours later at the hospital. And my mom, obviously, my parents were devastated, just devastated. But within a matter of months, I think it was about 6 months, my mother founded a support group for other parents who had lost babies or lost children, called Compassionate Friends. It's actually an international group. She developed or launched a chapter in our hometown. And I didn't know it at the time. In fact, I didn't know it until I was asked about 2 years ago in an interview, how did you develop the mindset, or did your parents do anything? And I go, actually, you know what? And I was reminded of that story, and I go, I never realized it consciously, but subconsciously that must have been planted in my head, that I saw my mom take an adversity and turn it into an advantage by serving other people. Because when I was in the hospital, that was one of my first thoughts, is how can I use this experience to help other people? I thought, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to be a motivational speaker, keynote speaker, right? So that was the first thing that led to that mindset. The second thing, and this is actually the bigger one, it was because it was conscious for me. A year and a half before, I had learned something in my sales training. At 19 years old, I started working for Cutco Cutlery, selling kitchen cutlery, high-end kitchen knives. In my first 10 days, I broke the 50-year-old company record. So I sold more kitchen knives in my first 10 days than anyone in the history of the company had. And and I did that, by the way, not because I am special. Leading up to that point, I had been very lazy my whole life. I wasn't an athlete. I was a C student. I was a class clown. I didn't play sports. I had like no discipline at all. And I happened to have a mentor, the person that hired me, the manager, Jesse Levine, who was the number one manager in the company. So he knew a thing or two about managing people and our expectations. His leadership is what led me, and he managed me. We talked every day, like 3, 4, 5 times a day. And he's the one that held my hand to, right. It's like we talked about in the book, behavior change. He literally called me in the morning before the work started, and said, Hal, what's your plan for the day? And he gave me the plan. What's your plan for the day? Okay, how many calls are you going to make? When are you going to make the calls? When do you do your appointment? Right? Literally, it was laid out for me. And then he would say, call me after you make your first 10 calls, call me and check in. I'd make 10 calls. I'd call him. Half the time, they didn't go well. And I'd be like, oh, Jesse, I don't, maybe I should give up. And he would manage my mindset and then send me back to make 10 more calls. And that's literally how I did every 10 days, right? I called him after my first day. I went 0 for 3. I sold nothing. And I called him to quit. He said, Hal, you can either be a quitter, which because we're in life. And I'm like, okay. He said, or you could do what champions would do, which is realize that some days you have good days, some days you have bad days. You just happen to have a bad day your first day. Champions would get on the phone, make more calls, and make tomorrow a great day. Okay. So, I take like this much credit for my own success because it was just all I did was what he told me to do. Now granted, for whatever reason, nobody else followed his instruction as well. They didn't break the record, whatever, but yeah, so I give him most of the credit. So anyway, something that he taught me on day 2 of my 3-day training is called the 5-minute rule, which states it's okay to be negative when things go wrong. And he was, again, trying to manage our expectations. He said it's okay to be negative when things go wrong, but not for more than 5 minutes. He says there's no value. And by the way, this is one of the most important lessons I've ever learned in my life. So if you're listening, really tune into this, the 5-minute rule. He said, when something goes wrong, literally set your timer on your phone for 5 minutes. And you give yourself 5 minutes to bitch, moan, complain, cry, punch a wall, whatever. And after 5 minutes, you say 3 very powerful words. Can't change it. Can't change it. And that's simply a conscious reminder to yourself that, okay, well, I can't change what happened 5 minutes ago, so there's no value in wishing I could or wishing it didn't happen. That's a waste of my energy. Now, the only intelligent choice I have to make is to fully accept what is now in the past. Yes, it's only 5 minutes in the past, but most people stay upset for days, weeks, months, years, and they think it's the thing that's making them upset that happened, but it's not the thing because the thing's not happening anymore. It's the fact that they're not willing to just accept it and be at peace with it. They are still resisting it, wishing and wanting it. We're different. It's not fair. I don't deserve that. And they're putting all this negative emotional energy into something that doesn't do anything. It adds no value to their life. It doesn't change. It just causes them to be upset or depressed or sad or angry or scared or resentful. And so because of the 5-minute rule, and I had practiced it for a year and a half leading up to my accident, so it was part of my way of thinking. It was fundamental. That's, by the way, that's at the end of the Miracle Equation book, there's a 30-day challenge, and the whole point of it is so that unwavering faith and extraordinary effort, at the end of those 30 days, they will be fundamental for you. They won't even be a decision you have to make consciously anymore. It'll be the fundamental way of thinking, living, and just the lens at which you view every opportunity in your life, every challenge, is that you'll have unwavering faith in your ability to overcome or accomplish anything, and that faith will fuel your effort to do whatever is necessary to get it done. And the more you take the effort, the more you put it forward, that fuels your faith. It's this faith effort feedback loop where the faith fuels your effort and the effort reinforces your faith, and more faith fuels more effort, and more effort reinfuels your faith. So for me, my dad came in one day in the hospital 2 weeks after the crash when I was thinking I'd never walk again. And he said, Hal, the doctors are concerned. They think you're in denial. They think you're delusional. They think that it's not normal that you're happy. You should be sad, scared, angry, depressed. They want me to find out how you're really feeling because they think you might be covering up emotions. Maybe you don't even know it. How are you really feeling, Hal? It's okay to be sad, scared, angry, depressed. And my dad's eyes were welled up. He was crying, almost crying, and his face was red. And I really thought about, wow, is he right? What am I covering up my real emotions? And I went inside and I thought about it for about 30 seconds. It didn't take very long. And I looked at my dad and I go, Dad, I thought you knew me better than that. And I smiled. And he was kind of taken aback and he goes, well, what do you mean? I said, don't you know I live my life by the 5-minute rule, remember? He said, yeah, I think so. Remind me what that is. I said, it's okay to be negative for 5 minutes when something goes wrong, but after that, there's no value in wishing it didn't happen because it happened. The only value is in accepting it fully, giving yourself the gift of being at peace with it, and focusing all your energy on what you want. Dad, the accident was 2 weeks ago. I can't change it, but I can choose to be the happiest and the most grateful that I've ever been in my life while I endure the most difficult time I've ever endured in my life. And that's my choice. And I said, Dad, there's only one of two options. And this is how the story kind of ends, I guess, in this part of it, which is, I said, number one, the doctors are right, and I will never walk again. And I've already decided if I'm in a wheelchair the rest of my life, I'm not going to let that define my life or determine my quality of life or my emotional state. I will be the happiest, most grateful person you've ever seen in a wheelchair, because I'm in a wheelchair either way. I might as well enjoy my life. I said, but that's only one possibility. The second possibility is I will walk again. I don't know how. I don't even know if it's really possible, but I do know that it's not necessarily impossible. So until proven otherwise, all my energy, I've accepted what I don't want. So it has I have no negative emotions towards this car accident at all. I don't wish it didn't happen, because it happened. I'm dealing with reality, not some imagined reality, right? I said, so all my energy is going into walking again. I visualize it every day. I pray about it. I think about it. I dwell on that. I dwell on the possibility that I want. And by doing so, I'm making it more probable than if I focused on my fear of not walking again. And a week later, Vipul, the doctors came in with routine x-rays. They said, we don't know how to explain this, but your body is healing so quickly. We're going to let you take your first step today in therapy. And I was blown away, because I was thinking maybe like 6 months to a year. Like, I need time to heal, not a week or 2 weeks after the crash, right? And so I took my first step in therapy that day. And I left the hospital 4 weeks later. And the miracle equation, I did not invent for another year and 2 months. But looking back, I realized, oh, I had unwavering faith that I could walk again, even though there was no guarantee, there was no certainty, but I knew that if I wanted to walk, focusing on having faith that I could walk was going to increase the likeliness that it was possible. For sure. Focusing on my fear and the anger and all the things the doctor said were normal, how was that going to help me, right? So, and then I put forth extraordinary effort. I was in therapy every day. I was trying to walk. I would always work longer than I was required to work in therapy. I would stay longer. I would work harder, if you call it a miracle, right? But again, I think it's one that we all have the ability to create miracles in our lives the way that I define a miracle, because it's not miracle. Can I define a miracle real quick before you ask your next question? So miracles are a really loaded word. In fact, there are some people I think that might not even, if you're listening to the episode, bravo. Some people probably just they're like, miracles. Well, I'm not on miracles. Here's the thing. Miracles have a bad rap because the way they're usually defined or thought of is like these passive random events. Like, I'm going to pray and wait for a miracle. I'm not a big fan of pray and wait. Now praying is fine, but pray and work your ass off. Like, pray and give it, put forth extraordinary effort. So for me, a miracle, here, let me define it. A miracle is any meaningful result beyond what you currently believe is possible for you, or probable for you. I should say probable. Any meaningful result beyond what you believe is probable for you. Therefore, because it's so far outside the realm of what you think is probable. Like for me, selling 1 million books, I didn't really know if I could do that. Walking again, I didn't know if I could do that. Beating cancer when I was given a 10 to 30% survival rate, how can you count on? I don't know, right? I just know that the world's most successful people maintain unwavering faith. They can do things they've never done, and more often than not, they do those things, right? And so for me, a miracle is very practical. And when you achieve these results that are beyond what you believe is possible, right, or probable, it feels like a miracle. And that's what the miracle equation is designed to do, is help you become the type of person that can do this not just once for one goal, but it's the fundamental way that you live your life through the lens of unwavering faith, and where you make extraordinary effort feel so ordinary that you're able to do it every single day.
Did you apply this when you got told about cancer? Like, did you maintain that emotional strength? The moment you were told, what was the first thing that went through your head?
everything we're talking about. So the first thing that went through my head was I was in disbelief because I live such a healthy lifestyle. I watched a documentary, man, 10 or 15 years ago called Healing Cancer from the Inside Out, about how to holistically, heal cancer. And when I watched that, and I bought that documentary for everybody in my family and sent it to them, right? And then I started living an anti-cancer lifestyle. I go, I'm not going to wait till I get cancer to live this way. I'm just going to live this way now. So I was eating a primarily plant-based diet with like organic grass-fed, free-range meats in the evenings, small amounts. I had all the chemicals out of my house. Like, we were clean. We're like hippies. We clean with, like, you can eat our cleaners that you clean the stove with, right? Like, it's all natural. Like, our shampoos, you can eat them. Like, it's all natural, right? So when I was diagnosed with cancer, the doctor told me, Hal, what you have is pretty serious, because we didn't know what was wrong. My lung kept filling up with fluid and I couldn't breathe. And I didn't know what was wrong.
What did they say
And
was the reason for that then? Did you manage to find out?
Well, yeah. So when I went into the doctor, first of all, the nurse called and goes, the doctor wants you to come in for the diagnosis. And I go, well, can you tell me over the phone? Give me a hint. She goes, no, he wants you to come in. And I know from watching movies that's usually bad news when the doctor wants you to come in. So I'm like, what in the heck? Why would he want me to come in, right? Because I just thought it was like because I went to urgent care first and they misdiagnosed the pneumonia. They said you have pneumonia. So that's why I thought it was some kind of something like that, right? So I go into the doctor and we sit down and he goes, Hal, well, and he was a new doctor. I just moved to Texas. And he said, something's going on. It could be a virus or an infection. I go, okay, that makes sense. He said, or it could be cancer. He was like, yeah, definitely not cancer. And I wasn't in denial. I just was like, I live such a clean lifestyle. Like, I don't think it could be cancer, right? And a few days later, I got another test from the doctor to confirm it was leukemia, blood cancer, right? And it was one of the most aggressive and rare forms of leukemia you can get, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, which ironically, or interestingly enough, is very common for kids, but it's one of the most rare cancers for adults. And for kids, it also is a very high success rate. It's like 80% cure rate. Adults, it's 10 to 30%, right? Like, dang, why didn't I get this when I was a kid? That'd have been better. And so I went and got more testing, found out it was cancer. And my first thought, so the first day I was diagnosed, my wife was not there. I called my wife, and hardest phone call I ever made. Now, I accept part of this 5-minute rule thing is what I call accepting life before it happens. And in the chapter in the book on becoming emotionally invincible, I talk about the 5-minute rule. I talk about the can't change it mantra. And the third strategy to make this a part of your way of life, to become emotionally invincible, is what I call accept life before it happens. Once you understand that the cause of all our emotional pain is self-created, it's our resistance to our reality that creates emotional pain. It's never the thing, and that's proven easily by simply seeing two different people can go through the same adversity, have the same tragedy befall upon them, right? And one person, it's the worst thing that ever happened, and their life is ruined, and they're deeply unhappy. And the other person has the exact same thing happen, but they go, you know what? This is the worst thing that ever happened to me. I agree, but I'm going to learn, grow, and become better than I've ever been before. I'm going to take this thing head on. So same tragedy, but the emotional response can be radically different. One person is resisting it, wishing it didn't happen. The other person has completely accepted it, and they're making the best of it. Same tragedy, two totally different experiences, right? So for me, I accept life before it happens. I mean, I made a decision 15 years ago after my car accident that I will accept anything that ever comes my way, and I will never let it affect my emotional well-being, right? And then I'm still human. I mean, if I were to lose a loved one tomorrow, I would be, and by the way, here's the thing. Sometimes I say there's positive and negative emotions, but I don't really believe emotions negative unless you let it control you, right? Like the emotion of like grieving, for example. If I were to lose a loved one, I would grieve. The difference is I would choose to grieve. I wouldn't let grief take hold of me and drag me down into the depths of despair. I would choose grief because it's a valuable emotion to process this experience of loss, right? So that's what emotional invincibility, that's why it's called what it's called, is it's where you're invincible to emotions and you get to choose any emotion that would best serve you. So for me, when I was diagnosed with cancer, I accepted it day one. In fact, here's what I told my wife. I said, sweetheart, she was very distraught. You know, as you know, I don't know if you're married, but no matter what you tell your spouse, we don't listen to our spouse, right? Because we see him. I don't know what it is. If you wake up next to a person for whatever reason, you let everything they say go in one ear and out the other, right? So I've told her a million times, 5-minute rule, blah, 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 but she usually doesn't do it. So when I told her could die of cancer, it was really hard for her to hear, of course. But I said, sweetie, 2 things. I know you're probably not going to believe this, but number 1, I believe, I have unwavering faith that this cancer I will beat it, and it will be the best thing that ever happened to me, and therefore the best thing that ever happened to us. Because she's like, and I think she had some, what are you talking about, right? I go, think about it. My car accident is the best thing that ever happened to me because it provided me with more growth and learning, and it gave birth to my life's work. I was able to impact a lot of people through that, and I still do through the story and the lessons, right? Well, this is just the next evolution in me overcoming an adversity that I can share the lessons that I'm sure I'm going to learn with other people. I said the second reason I'm not concerned is, I don't know if you remember this, sweetheart. You probably don't, but I live by this thing called the miracle equation, and I kind of quietly live by it. I don't really talk about it that much because it's kind of like this fundamental way that I just think and live and process stuff. I said, but it's how I walked again. It's how I've overcome everything in my life, and I have unwavering faith that the miracle equation works, right? Because I've seen it. And and I mean, she was more scared than she was optimistic, but I literally, other than when I was in horrific pain, which, I mean, there were times when I was in the ER facing death. I almost died multiple times during the cancer journey. I'm 6 feet tall. I'm already thin. I lost 25% of my body weight. I was 167 or so when I got the cancer, and I went down to 125 pounds. My wife is fit, and she's 5'6". I was 6 feet tall, and we were the same weight. And so yeah, it was rough. So, but I mean, honestly, maintaining this mindset and everything I talk about, I really live what I talk about, right? These aren't just ideas that I live it first, and then I share it in a book, So I during the cancer journey, I was afraid I was going to die probably at least once a day. Meaning, when I say I was afraid, the thought entered my mind, like, what if I died? And probably not even once a day, but frequently, right? Every few days or once a week, I would think, what if I apply the miracle equation and I still die? Like, that could happen, right? I don't know. But here's the thing. Fear and self-doubt are seeds that we plant that grow, and then they overtake us. Unwavering faith is it's the decision that overrides fear and self-doubt. So whenever I would have the fear that I might die, or that thought, that doubt that I might not live, I would only think about it for like a minute. And then I would pull out my miracle mantra, which I read to you guys earlier, the generic version. It said, I am committed to doing whatever it takes to live a long, healthy life, to be 100 plus years old with my wife, with Ursula and the kids. No matter what, there is no other option. And so I replaced fear and self-doubt with faith, and that became my reality, right? What we focus on expands, becomes our reality. My reality was, I'm going to live to be 100 plus, and there was no other option. So there was rarely another thought in my mind. And I believe in the mind-body connection. There's a lot of science now to support that what we think affects our cells at the cellular level, and we can kill or heal ourselves through our thoughts.
Yep, that opens up a whole different can of worms right there. That's another 3-hour conversation. But
and just Google, if you want to go down that worm, Google Joe Dispenza, right?
Yep, yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about.
Placebo. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll link all of that stuff in the description because it's all relevant to what you're talking about. But just to wrap this up with the final 2 questions, one being, if there's immediate action that you would suggest that someone takes who's listening to this, they're pumped up, they're energetic, they've absorbed your energy, what would it be?
Get clear on, look at all your goals for the year. Okay, look at all of your goals. Get clear on your number 1 goal, and don't call it a goal anymore, call it a mission. And the reason is language is very powerful. We all set goals every year, and we often don't hit them, right? We set a bunch of goals, and sometimes we know we're not going to hit them when we even set them. We're like, oh, but it's fun to imagine, what if all these things happen? We write them down, and then the year ends, and we go, well, I didn't hit my goals again, but I'm going to set new ones, or maybe move, right? But it's like, maybe I hit one or two. And usually if we do hit our goals, we hit the least important ones, because those are the ones that have the least significant consequences. So each day, those are the ones we engage in, right? The biggest goals and dreams, we keep putting it off, putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. Stop doing that. The word mission carries a lot more weight than a goal. Humanitarian organizations carry out missions. Military organization carries out missions. They don't hope that they don't die when they go into into it, right? It's a mission. It is do or die. They are 100% committed because their life is on the line, and that's how I'm telling you to approach your goals, right? So get clear on your mission, the number one goal that will make the biggest impact in your life, both internally in terms of who you become by pursuing it, and externally based on the benefit or the result. So that's the biggest thing. Get clear on your mission, and then write down your unwavering faith statement, or what I call your miracle mantra. And go back and listen to it. Listen to this. I am committed to doing whatever it takes to achieve my mission, regardless of my results along the way, no matter how long it takes. There is no other option, right? And then last but not least, your extraordinary effort is define your process, is get clear on what is the thing I can do every day. And maybe it's not the same thing. Maybe it's, just it's dedicating 30 minutes or an hour each day to do one thing to move you in the direction of that mission. And that's it, right? Now, I know I just gave you the essence of the book. I hope you understand the value. You'll read the whole thing, but that's the simplest form. Decide on your mission, establish your unwavering faith, clarify your extraordinary effort, do all of it, and make those two decisions every day until you get there for as long as it takes. There you go.
I love that. Yeah. And just the last question, just to wrap this up, when all is said and done, with everything that you've accomplished so far and everything you dream to accomplish, what's a legacy you want to leave behind?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. Thank you. It is to elevate the consciousness of humanity. And that originally, when my goal was to change 1 million lives one morning at a time, well, once we sold 1 million books, I'm like, well, now what? I didn't know, what's my new mission? And the mission went from a fixed number to elevating the consciousness of humanity. And we have, there's over 1 million people that wake up every day and do the miracle morning. Now they're starting to live the miracle equation. And by doing that, they are elevating their own consciousness. And as members of humanity, collectively, the community is elevating the consciousness of humanity, because the ripple effect is immeasurable. When one human being elevates their consciousness, all of a sudden, they become not only better for themselves, but they become a better parent for their children. They become a better leader for the people that they lead. They become a better friend for their, right? Every single relationship that they impact is improved. And of course, if they get their friends to read the Miracle Morning or whatever, then it spreads faster. But in all seriousness, that's my objective. Is I want people to look back in history and go, the world is a different place, because, and I don't care about the credit. Like, for me, I'm really a non-ego person. In fact, I shy away from it, and that's why it was the mission that I started. But now I've given the mission to the people, and now there are over 1 million people, and every day thousands of new people buy the Miracle Morning and start practicing it, and now they're living the mission and they're executing the mission. And here's the crazy thing. This is the last thing I'll say on this. And the weird part is, my mission in life increased my fear of dying when I had cancer, because I realized if I die today, the mission is perpetual. The book is still, it's all word of mouth now. The consciousness of humanity is elevating from 1 million people now to 2 million, and then soon to 3, and then 4, and then 5. And then, we're working right now. Our secret path is to 1 billion. Now we're trying to change 1 billion lives. And we have an actual plan to do it. But the point is, Yeah, that's the long answer, is elevating the consciousness of humanity. And I don't, you don't need me to do it. It's being done now by the entire global Miracle Morning community that's out there living and spreading the message.
Yeah, other people are picking up the message and become the messengers for the message, for you. So yeah, I guess the
Sure.
message came through you, and now you passed it on, and it's going for other people. So thank you so much for sharing this. I think it's been an amazing hour. People are gonna go away pumped, and they've got a lot of action to take away from this. And I wouldn't be surprised if they have to listen to it multiple times. But if people want to find out more about what you do, what you're up to, where you're going next, and more about the book, where can they do that?
The book, you can get it wherever books are sold, and there's a bunch of cool bonuses that you get inside the book. And then go to miraclemorning.com, and that's where you can that's the hub of all Miracle. And the site's brand new. We just did a new site like a week ago, so I'm excited. And I would say the most important thing on that page, when you go to miraclemorning.com, scroll down the homepage where it says join the community, click on that. It'll take you to Facebook. The Miracle Morning community is a Facebook group with over 200,000 members from over 100 countries who wake up every day and lovingly, selflessly support each other or get the support that they need. And I check in there every day, so I'd love to see you in there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for this, and I look forward to touching base with you again in the future.
Thank you, Vipul. I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for having me.